Welcome to week 1 of the NFL season. I'm your commissioner, Brent Hesse, and let's do a run through of the week 1 matchups. It's an exciting slate of games here to start the season. Our first matchup we will delve into is the worst team ever versus getting lucky at the Hilton. Joe Prestigiacomo, Brock Hayden. So one thing I'm going to do a bit differently this year is going to predict who I think is going to be the highest and lowest performer for each team in their starting lineup. So here for the worst team ever, who I think is really going to pop this week, Keenan Allen, playing against my Kansas City Chiefs. But the Chiefs secondary is going to be weak without Eric Berry. First game for Kendall Fuller, the talented player that was brought over in the Alex Smith trade. It's going to be tough to contain Keenan Allen for any team, but much less a weakened and depleted secondary that Kansas City has. I expect Keenan Allen to go for 100 and a score. For the worst team ever, though, George Kittle has a very tough road matchup against Minnesota, still coming off an injury. I don't see more than 30 yards for Kittle, and I don't think he gets into the end zone. But looking at getting lucky at the Hilton, on his side, his running back core is very weak with the loss of Le'Veon Bell, and one of those running backs is going to be his lowest performer. That's going to be Chris Carson, playing at Denver. The Seahawks didn't establish much of a run game last year, and while that will be more of a focal point, it's still going to be difficult for Carson to get anything going. I expect him to be under 50 yards total, no touchdowns. But one thing that will make Brock Hayden smile a little bit while trying to defend his championship will be the fact that he was able to acquire A.J. Green. We won't call it a scam, but Brock made a big trade already. Getting A.J. Green, I expect him to go off against the Colts. I'm not sure if it'll be a shootout, but A.J. Green will be the Bengals' star player per usual. I expect him to go for at least 80 and probably get in the end zone as well. Right now it's 8-0 in favor of Joe, thanks to Matt Bryant's long 50-yarder on Thursday night. And I expect Joe to take this one. He's got a more solid all-around team. Keenan Allen's going to lead the way, and Cam Newton has a great matchup against the Cowboys as well. I expect Joe to get this one and send Brock packing. Sticking in the same division, we've got Saquon These Nuts versus Hooked on a Thielen. Noah Gallegos, Zach Wilson, a huge Paddock Jr. showdown. For Noah G, I think his star player this week will be Marvin Jones, playing Monday night against the Jets. Marvin Jones exploded a couple times last year, and I think he's going to come out hot to start this year. Marvin Jones on Monday night. If Noah G is within a 20 or 30, he's got a chance with Marvin Jones taking the field because he's going to have a big old game. The only problem is Matthew Stafford is hooked on A. Thielen's quarterback, so he's going to need it to be only Marvin, and I think it's going to be a lot of Marvin. We'll see if it's enough. To hurt Saquon These Nuts, though, Jamal Williams. While he does get the start, and he has less competition in the backfield with only Tymont there, they're playing against a daunting Chicago front seven that just got better. I don't see Jamal Williams being able to get anything going. He may get a couple receptions out of the backfield, but I expect him to have under 30 rushing yards and no more than 50 receiving yards, and he won't get in the end zone. For Hooked on A. Thielen, man, oh man, there's so many good options. As I already mentioned, Stafford, I expect him to have a good game, but somebody that always pops is going to be Michael Thomas. He's playing against the Buccaneers, who are without Jameis Winston. They're going to be struggling. They're going to have to try to keep up with this explosive New Orleans offense. With no Mark Ingram to start the season, I expect New Orleans to be airing it out. And who's their main man? Michael Thomas. I don't want to hear Ben talk about their third and fourth string Terminators. It's all Michael Thomas, folks. He's going to have a big game. Now, what's going to hurt Wilson, though, is his kicker. For some reason, Wilson hates kickers, and he doesn't seem to address them very well. He's got the Boswell at Cleveland, no Le'Veon. Big Ben struggles on the road. This will be a low-scoring game. Boswell might only get 1 point on an extra point. All in all, though, I think Hooked on A. Thielen has the better team. Right now, they are down 13-0 thanks to the Falcons' defense performance, getting two turnovers and some sacks on Thursday night. But Hooked on A. Thielen just has a little bit more firepower with Thomas, Thielen, Stafford. I like their matchups. I like their team. Hooked on A. Thielen, week 1. And here we go with the next matchup. It's 2 Girls 1 Cup versus the Nancy Miller Crew. And the 2 biggest stories in football this week were both on the holdouts. One of Le'Veon Bell and one of Mitch Gordon. Who would report to their team first? Mitch Gordon ended up caving in, reporting and setting his lineup midweek. An incredible turn of events, and one that we didn't really see coming at all. But we're glad Mitch is here. We're excited for the season. And now that he's set his lineup, boy, does it look dirty. Tommy B, I expect him to be the #1 performer. How can he not be? It's Tom Brady going up against the Houston Texans in what many predict to be a shootout. Brady, he also has Hogan. So Tom Brady and Hogan, I expect to be 2 Girls 1 Cup's biggest performers, but also Kamara. He's got Tampa Bay with no Ingram in the backfield. Those 3 combined might put up 75. For the Nancy Miller Crew, his best player this week is going to be Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill caught long bombs against the Chargers in both matchups last season. Now he's got a gunslinger, Mahomes, that's going to be willing to throw that ball deep plenty of times to Tyreek Hill. But Nancy Miller Crew, one piece I don't really like this week, Delanie Walker on the road against Miami. Delanie Walker is a consistent player, but he's getting up there in age, and the Titans really have a lot of question marks going into this season. I don't think this will be a high-scoring game, and I don't think Delanie Walker will be one of the focal points of the offense. Now, 2 Girls 1 Cup's team isn't perfect. They have a couple weaknesses, and one of those is that 1 cup that they do have. It's Cooper Kupp. And while I do like his matchup against Oakland, they also have Robert Woods and Brandon Cooks, who is starting for the Nancy Miller Crew. I don't think they'll be able to feed all those options. I think Kupp will be the one that's left out of this game plan. It will be different every week, but this time I just don't see Kupp being as effective as Woods and Cooks. So that could bring down Mitch's team a little bit. In the end, it won't be enough. Mitch's team is very solid, and he is looking good this year. I expect him to get off to a 1-0 start in the GOAT League. And the other matchup in that division is ButtKicker.com versus Show Me Your Johnson. Eric Day, you've drafted a better team than I thought. I may have initially ranked you too low in my rankings because I do like your team a lot. You front-loaded with talent, and there's 3 guys that really jump off the page for me this week. Any of them could be your top scorer. Deshaun Watson, David Johnson, or the Rams defense against Oakland. But the one I'm going to have to pick is David Johnson. He is back. He's been waiting a year now for this opportunity. He gets the Redskins. I expect DJ to go for 150 total yards and a touchdown in this one. There's no stopping DJ. Great player to get at 4th overall. And he's going to set you up for a great chance at making a play this year in this league. What's going to hurt you, though? Emmanuel Sanders in the flex. I know Sanders looked good in the preseason, and people are sleeping on the Seattle defense because they've lost a lot of key pieces, but they're still a solid defense. And it's Case Keenum. He's an upgrade from what they had last year, but still not anywhere near a top-half quarterback in this league. Emmanuel Sanders will struggle and won't get in the end zone this week. For ButtKicker.com, my team did fairly well. I'm off to a 28-0 start after the Eagles defense, Coleman and Ertz combined for 28 on Thursday night. But one player that I think can exceed all those is Alex Collins getting the Buffalo Bills on Sunday. Collins rested all preseason because the Baltimore Ravens showed how much they value him, not even wanting to risk any sort of injury in preseason. Collins is due for a big game against the porous Buffalo defense. I expect Baltimore to get a lead and continue to pound him the rock. I expect 120 yards for Collins and 2 touchdowns. Holy bleep! And where my team's going to struggle, I think it already happened. Zach Ertz only got me 48 receiving yards against Atlanta. The Falcons were doubling him most of the game, chipping him off the line. I don't think anybody else on my team is going to get below 4 or even at 4. So Robert Woods, even, who most people think is going to struggle, he'll get at least 5 points this week, and Ertz will be my lowest scorer. In the end, it's going to be a very tight game. But if I had to predict this one, and I will, it's going to come down to Greg Zuerlein and the Rams defense on Monday night trying to catch Robert Woods at the buzzer. They can't do it. ButtKicker.com holds on. In the final division, which is really one of the most interesting divisions I've ever seen, a bunch of talented teams here. Only one of them can win the division, and it's going to start with some important Week 1 matchups. And the first matchup is Robbie Burns' Odell No versus Austin Happel's Julio's Meat Stick 2. Not sure if Happel can't remember how to change his team name or if he just really loves Julio, even though he's not on his current roster. Either way, let's get to the matchup. For Odell No, Matt Ryan put up kind of a stinker, only 8 points on Thursday night that puts Robbie Burns in a hole, but let's see if he can pull himself out of it. I think his leading scorer this week will be none other than the Saints defense going up against the Ryan Fitzpatrick-led Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I expect the Saints defense to turn him over early and often. They've got Marshawn Lattimore, the Defensive Rookie of the Year, along with a number of great pass rushers. They'll get to Fitzpatrick, and Tampa Bay really does not have an established running game either. It's going to be a long night if you're a Buccaneers fan. And then in a surprising fashion, I think Robbie's least scoring player will be Odell Beckham Jr. He's going to be matched up against Jalen Ramsey a lot. Now, the Giants are going to do some things to try to move him into the flex and get him on different matchups. But either way, this Jacksonville defense is going to be very stout. And Eli Manning does have a lot of different weapons this year. So I expect Odell to be under 50 yards for the game, and I don't think he'll get in the end zone. He will obviously have a great year, but it's not going to be off to a strong start Week 1. For Julio's Meat Stick 2, goodness, Todd Gurley fell to number 3 overall in the draft, and Happel was quick to snatch him up. Last year's fantasy MVP, and he gets Oakland on Monday night. Probably going to need to be up 40 because Gurley's going to run for over 100. He'll get in the end zone multiple times. Good night, Gurley. Where Happel's going to hurt, though, David Njoku will be his least scoring player. Now, he is a young, electrifying tight end for the Cleveland Browns, but they have a lot of weapons as well, and this is a stout Pittsburgh defense. I think Njoku could be overlooked. I don't think he'll see very many targets at all this year compared to other starting tight ends. And if he doesn't make the most of them, he's not going to get too many points. This will be one of those weeks. In the end, Todd Gurley and Drew Brees are going to carry Julio's Meat Stick 2 past Odell No in Week 1, though. I don't see that being much of a problem. In the final Week 1 matchup, we've got Pearl Barber dropping bombs on All I Do Is Wins. Ben Schroeder, Ben Walker. Let's see what they got. For Pearl Barber, they were off to a hot start. Julio Jones and Jay Ajayi both went for 20. And I'm going to play it safe here and say those will be their 2 highest leading scores on the week with 20 each. But I will say that one of either Hopkins or Rodgers will match that 20-point total, and he'll have 3 players sitting on an even 20 points this week. If I had to guess, I'm going to say it's going to be Aaron Rodgers. He does play a tough Chicago Bears defense, but he's at home. He's back healthy. I expect Rodgers to go for 2 scores. He will be held under 300 yards passing, but he'll get a couple scores, and it'll be enough to get him right at 20 points on the night. That's going to be plenty for Pearl Barber. Where they're going to struggle is the Barber man himself. I mean, there's not much to say other than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to struggle heavily this weekend, and Pearl Barber won't be able to get anything going. Peyton Barber, that is, because Pearl Barber's here. On the other side of the football, all I do is wince. I don't know if they're wincing this week, though. With Carson Wentz still out, they're relying on Jared Goff to be their starting quarterback, and I do like that play. I'm tempted to say he's going to be their highest scorer this week, but how can you pick against Antonio Brown? It doesn't matter who it is. It's Antonio Brown downtown. Without Le'Veon stealing targets out of the backfield, Brown might even be targeted more. He's going to have a big night. Who's not going to have a big night? Evan Ingram. I already talked about Odell's struggles this week. Ingram's going to be in the same boat. Their pass rush for Jacksonville is not going to allow Ingram to run out many routes. He's going to have to stand and protect a lot. Also, Ingram really struggled last year whenever he didn't get a significant volume, and he won't get significant volume in this game. Ingram won't be a very high scorer. All in all, Pearl Barber's already up 40-4. I don't see, all I do is Wentz closing that gap. Pearl Barber, you're 1-0.